Folks, I am so thrilled to be joined by Kate Griffin, VP of Delivery Services at nCloud Integrators, and Brian Hodges, CEO and co-founder of nCloud Integrators. We're going to have a great discussion around bringing support insights into Gainsight, why you need this, how it all works on a technical level, what those next steps are. We're going to be running a contest through this webinar. We're going to put 4 GIFs up on the screen at random moments. And if you're the first person in the chat to name what movie this GIF is from, we're going to throw a gift card to you. So we're going to help some of that holiday shopping a little bit, which is exciting. But before we start, I have a couple icebreaker questions. And Kate, I want to start with you. If you could pick up a new skill in an instant, what would it be? And why?
If this skill could be something that's not realistic, I would have almost a superpower of being able to time travel.
Nice.
Be able to go and redo stuff or spend more time in things or savor moments a little bit more. So we asked that question actually around the dinner table quite a bit of if you had a superhero power, what it would be. And that's always mine.
Oh, that's cool. And then Brian, I got a fun one for you. If you had to swap legs with the legs of any other animal, which animal would you choose?
Oh my gosh.
I think I got the easy one.
I have no idea. I guess, yeah, I guess it would be, I guess it would be an elephant. I don't know an animal out there that has stronger legs than an elephant. And I think strong legs are important for a lot of things that you have to do when you have a house and when you have all kinds of things that you're trying to do around it. So I'll say an elephant.
I love it.
It wouldn't look very good.
Those are great answers. Thank you for indulging me on those icebreakers. That's great. So, Kate, Brian, I'd love to introduce you more to the folks who are joining us and have you tell us about nCloud.
Sure. I'll just take a moment or two and talk a little bit about who we are here at nCloud. We are a consulting organization. We focus on all things post-sale service related. So we help our customers with improving their customer success, customer support, professional services, education services teams. I think what's really relevant for this conversation here is, and of particular interest, is our expertise in the customer success space, as is on the screen here. Since our co-founding in 2018, we've done over 600 Gainsight implementations. All of our consultants in this particular part of the practice are certified Gainsight administrators. We have a network of over 3,000 customer success professionals that we've worked with and that continue to work with as we do. As we carry things forward, and we're across a lot of different industries. We've labeled 17 of them, although I think there's probably more than that if we got down into the weeds of some of the implementations we've done. So I think what's really exciting for us is we are primary delivery partners for both Support Logic and Gainsight. So we're really excited about the opportunity and the power that we see with bringing these two platforms and these two data sets together. So it's a little bit about who we are and really excited.
Awesome. Thanks for that intro. We're going to get into our here. And there's a little bit of an echo going on. Brian, it might be on your side. I'm not sure. But let's just get into the agenda real quick. I'm going to give a short, quick overview of what Support Logic is doing, just to get people acquainted in case they don't know. We're going to make that brief. And then we're going to get into why the insights are so important for CS, specific insights, and make that business case. Then Brian's going to talk about breaking down customer data silos. And then Kate's going to really dive in with us about how this technically works, so you can really see behind the scenes of what this process is, all the value that nCloud brings to this integration, and everything that's really possible for your CS teams. And then Brian's going to come back and we're going to talk about a framework for how things like this can be really successful in your organization. So it's an exciting agenda. And before we dive into it, though, we have our first GIF. of the webinar. So I'm looking over in the comments. Oh, Chris Romrell has it with Fargo. That was fast. Congrats, Chris. If you didn't get this one, you get 3 more tries. Nice one. One of my favorite movies. So where are we starting here? It's really this mindset shift of the fact that companies can really only grow and protect their revenue if they're able to act on these signals, right? On the signals that are coming in from the data that you're getting from your customers. And a lot of that data is happening in your support cases. Whether you are the product team or the customer success team, there's so many interactions happening in support, and you've got to be able to mine those for a truly successful organization that can grow and protect their revenue. But there's a challenge there. In support, there's the firefighting, and there's the data trapped in silos. There's a focus on reactive metrics. There's that missing of those pieces across the organization. And then there's this inability for a lot of support organizations to really make their case as a revenue center. And we've seen this across many successful companies and our customers as well. But there's a change happening, and the companies that are really embracing support experience are seeing big results in this. They're seeing their time to resolution go down. They're seeing their escalation rates go down, their CSAT go up. So that's an amazing thing, that these insights are being harnessed and that real results are coming from it. And how does this all start? It starts back with the support data that I kind of referenced first. Without being able to pull that information out, you're really just left with metadata, right? And trailing metrics and things like that. You're left with the priority of a case, the status of a case, and maybe how a case went. But when you get into support experience and natural language processing, pulling these insights out of the case and labeling them, now you've got the ability to see exactly what's happening in the case. You're kind of able to automatically, with AI, drill in and pull out churn risk and urgency, a sentiment score, a support health score, and all these things. So you can kind of see that on a support side, there's a lot of value here. And with some of these, there's a lot of value for customer success as well. So that's what's kind of interesting about insights like this, is that you can see that across your organization, there's a lot of benefits. So on the left side, on the support team, I think that that's becoming pretty clear. But one that we're going to drill into today is this customer success piece, the expansion opportunities, the churn risk, the customer health. You've got to have this support part integrated into what you're seeing every day. And that really gets into the customer success mission. At Gainsight Pulse this year, Nick Mehta came out and the team, and they really talked about, what does CS mean, right? It's the outcomes and the experience, and it's these 4 big drivers for what CS is focused on. And this really aligns with getting those support insights. And this is really a big mantra that we believe in, is that customer success thrives in Gainsight. This is where the signals are stored. This is where CS lives. So you can have CS go to your support cases, to your support logic instance, but even better, bring them into Gainsight, right? Bring in the ones that really matter to customer success and have them flowing in their process with that additional information. That's super powerful. And that really leads to this slide, showing this observability unification, where you are pulling in your human and virtual agents, your chatbots, your surveys, your voice of the customer, your CRM data, and all that's getting analyzed in support logic. Also, if you're using Gainsight, you're able to bring in your product experience, your customer success, and now all of that is kind of coming together, which is really exciting, depending on which persona you are. If you're a support person, you're working in support logic, you're working in your CRM. If you're in customer success, you're able to harness all these insights inside Gainsight, which is really cool. So from here, we've got our second contest piece, and this is the hardest one of the webinar. I want to see if someone can get this. My personal favorite movie, and a bit of a tough one. I don't know if anyone's going to get it. We might just have to let this one go. I'm not seeing any guesses in the chat. I want to open this up. Brian, Kate, do you know what it is? Well, I think I told you, so that's not fair.
Yes, I only know because you told me, so I don't want to I don't want to take the prize for that.
All right. It's a tough one. Philip Seymour Hoffman in a small role. This is Big Lebowski, but we're going to move on. So, oh, I'm on the wrong screen. Brian, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Great, great. Well, thank you for that. And so breaking the silos, what we find, and I mentioned, part of what we do at nCloud Integrators is we work with a lot of different post-sale services organizations. And it's interesting in our work, we often find when we speak to the leadership team, they say our service teams work hand in hand and collaborate every step of the way in the customer journey. And oftentimes we find that at the surface that may be true, but the reality is that often we see that the organizations are very much working in a silo. And as an industry, we've helped sort of create the issue because every service organization has a technology that's specific to them. Whether it's a ticketing system for the support team, or a customer success platform, or a professional services platform. So we are contending that there is a need to work on this silo situation, to break the silos down, to create a more cohesive experience for your clients, and to share the insight from one services organization to the other. And it's not just something that we're observing. In fact, if we go to the next slide, this is something that the TSIA, the Technology Services Industry Association, for those of you that may not be familiar with it, it's essentially a consortium of all of the technology companies around the world that share thoughts and best practices and things within their services disciplines. But they recently held their fall conference, and the theme of that conference was breaking the silos. So it's clear that service collaboration is something that's being seen as important, and it's definitely gaining momentum. And so leading up to this presentation, I worked with my co-presenter, Bo DiMuscio, and we surveyed quite a number of the membership for the TSIA, and 50% of the respondents said that they are going to be sharing data or applications to help break the silos. This is a priority for them, and I think the data part of it was the higher priority of the two. So it's clear that there are a lot of companies thinking about this. How do we find ways to share important information from one services team to the other? The next bullet point, I think, was pretty self-evident as well. The number one concern for the folks that took the survey, and then even when we delivered the presentation, the number one concern was, if you do this poorly, it has the potential to lead to customer confusion. And so whatever you do when it comes to a collaboration effort, breaking the silos, sharing data, it has to be done with intent, and it has to be done in a way that doesn't create confusion for your customer. So the key takeaway, the final bullet point here that I wanted to just highlight with this, is that if you're looking to create a unified customer experience across your entire customer journey, it does require collaboration of all stakeholders. Breaking down these silos is an absolute necessity. And so today, we're going to talk in some level of detail specifically about breaking that silo between customer support and customer success, starting with this data approach. And I'm going to turn things over to Kate, and she's going to walk through the CS strategy side of it, as well as some real world examples of how you might look to do this within your own environments. And then I'll come back and put a little bit of a framework on the table for you to consider as you move forward. So with that, Kate, I'm going to turn things over to you.
Thanks, Brian. Before I lift the curtain and showcase the art of what's possible in this integration, which I'm so very excited about, between Support Logic and Gainsight, I first want to set the stage of Why do we think this is important? And Brian's done a little bit of that, of, what we need to do and what thoughts are out there on building this bridge. In our work with customer success organizations, we're doing a lot of strategy development, and we're also helping them leverage CS solutions, one of those being Gainsight. If we go to the next slide, what I want to share with you is a little bit about some things that we see in our work with customer success organizations. One of the main goals that a CS org is trying to achieve in their use of Gainsight is to build out a 360-degree view of a customer, pulling in data from lots of different sources to empower a CSM to make data-informed decisions, having to spend less time trying to dig and find data, but leverage what's in front of them, spending more time building meaningful relationships with their customers. We did a little research at the beginning of the year and looked at a cohort of customers who we were implementing into Gainsight. And we found something that was a little bit alarming, because many customers request that they want to integrate support data into Gainsight. But when we looked at this cohort, only 35% of those customers were actually integrating it into their initial build. And that led us to, some questions of, well, why is that? Why are only 35%, even though lots of customers are saying that's a key data point to have in our CS strategy. And it's a key data source to truly understand what's happening across the holistic customer experience. When we took a look at this, and what my takeaways are, is that it's really around the integration methods that we have and the interpretation that has to go into that as a data source. So Ryan, if you build out this slide to my next bullet points, Gainsight has lots of different paths to integrate lots of different data sources. But if we focus it on support data today, there's direct connectors to support tools. We can get flat files integrated. We could use an API. We have an S3 connection. So there's lots of paths. And for customers who are able to successfully get their support data in, it's raw data. So it's lots of ticket data. And this is where I think it's a blocker, but also an opportunity for this integration that I'm going to showcase here in a few slides, and that there's a lot of interpretation that has to happen at that point. In CS, do we know what meaningful insights are to come from that support data set? And when we look at our work with customers, when we get into a conversation around an outcome of wanting to integrate support data, typically that means we need an admin. We need that skill to be an admin within a Gainsight. We need data SMEs from both the CS side and the support side. And then we have to decide how to interpret the data, and then do some very heavy technical transformations to make any sort of actionable interpretations. On our next slide, I have an example of this. So customer success organizations can hire nCloud to be their full-time admin. They'll outsource to us, and we do a lot of admin hands to keyboard along with strategy work. And this is an example of that. So we worked with a customer who wanted to integrate support data into their Gainsight environment, and we were able to successfully integrate it. But once we had the data, there was many conversations to decide, well, how are we going to leverage that? And what should we leverage? And why should we have that insight? And for this example, we were trying to interpret support data to integrate it into our health score. What you see on the left there is a lot of interpretation and data transformations that are happening. So this is where you need the admin skill to be able to do this, but you also need to know designing with the end in mind of what you're trying to achieve. Then even after that, it's tagging different types of data to make with case expressions to then be able to set a score to a specific criteria. As a former CS leader and a Gainsight user, I also had this experience. When we were first implementing Gainsight, we luckily were able to successfully integrate our instance of Zendesk into our environment. And then I remember sitting in a conference room everybody kind of quiet and eyes wide open of, okay, we have it. Now, what do we want to do with it? Right? We didn't know what was good. Should we look at the amount of tickets in a certain period of time? What's a good period of time to look at? And so it's times like that. I talked about time traveling at the beginning of this, Ryan, right? And be able to go back. Here's a time when I would love to leverage that skill or learn that skill. And if we go to this next slide, this is where I wish I could go back to my past self and have an integration like what you're going to see in the support logic to Gainsight integration, because we really were truly hitting a wall in that moment. And this is where support logic is really going to be a game changer for CS organizations. Let's go to the next slide, because I'm sure many folks in the line are ready to see what this actually looks like. And hopefully I'm going to provide lots of content that will help you think about how to up-level your strategy with the integration. Before that, though, I see a GIF. So, Ron, I'm going to throw it over to you. Hopefully somebody gets this one.
I think someone will get this one. I'm looking in the chat. If you're with us and you're watching, throw it in the chat what you think that this GIF is from. Oh, close. It's close, but not quite there. This is a little bit of an earlier movie. That's Alicia Silverstone. Lynn knows it. I don't know if Lynn is one of our producers and one of our customer success leaders. I don't know if we're allowed to have Lynn guess, but Lynn, I wish we could have you guess. All right. I think we're going to give this one a couple more seconds. Oh, there we go. Austin's got it. Nice. Clueless. Way to go. All right.
I was glad somebody got that one.
We got one more. If you're still with us, we got one more coming up in a few slides. So I'll hand it back to you, Kate.
Great. Well, hopefully we're not clueless after all of the wonderful things I'm about to share you, because I'm going to provide lots of ways that we can leverage this data within Gainsight. And we can go to that next slide, Ryan. Ryan showed this at the beginning of the webinar of just the potential of what the AI capabilities are within support logic, what insights and signals it will bubble up. So there's so much here, which is what I have highlighted on the right-hand side. We're not going to leverage all of this in our CS strategy, but we want to leverage some of it. And we've pulled together, what we think is going to be important to pull over in this integration into our customer success strategy, so that one, they're relevant signals to a CS organization. In CS, we're very much focused on retaining our customers, expanding our customers, making sure they're having a good experience that is going to lead to successful retention and expansion opportunities. And in the integration, we want to ensure that we bubble up things that are going to be relevant. And the three that you see here are what you're going to see outlined in the integration. The first one being a signal where we have a likely to escalate signal coming from some of that support data. The second one, pulling out where we have any negative sentiment. And the third, and probably the one that will sound the most alarms, which is a churn risk. And I wouldn't think this one would happen all the time, but I think, Ryan, you referenced it as like spotting the eagle, right? But when it does happen, we want to make sure that we're integrating and leveraging it within our operational workflows within Gainsight. And also, you'll see that note below that support logic continues to evaluate, right, what signals are important for CS organizations to have in this integration. So excited to announce that there also will be releasing the opportunity to pull in the support health score from support logic as well. And Ryan, I'm just curious, is there anything else you'd want to share related to like the signals we have here or definitions of these?
Definitely. I think when you look at this slide and you see these terms, it can feel a little inside baseball. What is likely to escalate? What is negative sentiment? These are different things that we're pulling in, but they're not all created equal. So likely to escalate is really a signal that is part of a machine learning model, where it looks at all these different factors happening in the case. how many times the customer has replied to a case, how long the case has been open, what is the sentiment going on in the details of the case. So there's all these factors that are kind of combined into predicting, will this case escalate, so that you can head it off before it happens. That's what's happening with a likely to escalate signal. Negative sentiment is a category of signals: frustration, confusion, negativity coming at you. And all of these things are negative sentiment signals. The ones that are really important, we think that customer success would want to know about because they are potentially affecting that account, right? And then churn risk, like we kind of alluded to, is that bald eagle. Every once in a while, there will be a real churn risk signal sitting in a case. These are things that we think customer success should definitely know about. So that is a moment in the language of the case that we pull out. We label it churn risk, and then that's a signal that gets sent over. So the goal here is to really identify these key moments that are happening in support that we think customer success needs to know about, and getting them over into where customer success lives.
Great. And also I think the difference here between what I talked about in the insights from CS of customers are populating case data into Gainsight today, but it's all ticket data. This is allowing us to focus on certain types of cases or certain types of signals that are going to be relevant for a CSM to take action, because a CSM is focused on a certain set of activities. Support is focused on a certain set of activities. So we're playing right in the same sandbox. We both have our responsibilities for supporting the customer. We need to make sure that we stay in our own swim lanes, but that we share information back and forth. And this is going to do this really nicely to, I think, enhance collaborations between the support organization and customer success. All right, let's get into the good stuff, Ryan. So we're going to go to our next slide. We're going to start to talk about how do we make the magic happen. And the way that this integration is going to work is, and what I'm sharing with you today is an actual integration that's set up and running live today in one of our environments. And the way that we've built it out is we've built a custom object within Gainsight, and we have fields that we want to start to align or map our data from support logic from. And then we're going to leverage an API to feed that data into this object on a cadence that works for our organization. So we have a home for it, we're mapping it, and we're loading it in on a cadence and trying to only leverage those signals that we just reviewed in the slide before this. In our practice, we always suggest this as a foundational aspect of our work, and that's having a data dictionary for any objects that we create for any data that we are integrating. And in that example on that next slide, Ryan, we're showcasing how we've developed that and how we would encourage you all to take this practice and bring it to fruition so that you also are driving forward what data is coming in and why is it coming in and what does it look like. So having a data dictionary is a foundational practice with any sort of data integration. And this is following the object that we created, having the fields on the left-hand side, a definition for what that field is, and then an example of what sort of data would you see there. There's two of those rows that are highlighted in the example so that you can see a little bit more of the detail as to what is the rich sort of information and signals are you going to get. So an example of a signal subject, we can see there that support logic has detected a frustration signal on a specific case. And then we can go even a little bit deeper if we want to understand any customer comments that have come through on that case as well. We'll start to see all of these fields in the art of what's possible or the build outs that I'm going to walk you through within a Gainsight instance. But I also wanted to set this foundation that with any integration, we should be defining this. And Support Logic has done a wonderful job of working with us to come up with what these definitions should be and working together to create it. In our next slide, I want to pivot now to talking about once we get the data into Gainsight, that's one step. Then we need to think about how we're leveraging it. And if we think back a few slides, I showed you a very complex rule build of us interpreting data. And this is where I think we really reduce our Gainsight admin burden and up-level our strategy to enhance and leverage these insights across the customer journey and put in front of the customer success organization. The three aspects that I'm going to walk us through of how and where we should integrate this is first, with enriching the details of those support signals and placing them or leveraging them on the customer 360, which was one of those goals we hear customer success organizations say they want out of Gainsight. They want to build this holistic view of what's happening with a customer, and that's just not in a certain phase. That's across the entire customer journey. So be able to integrate or enrich that experience with those signals. The second thing is we want to be able to operationalize and leverage that data in workflows across the customer journey. And I'm going to have a specific use case of leveraging one of those signals to enhance a risk management framework for a CS organization. The third example is one that I think everyone in this call would be very excited about if you're in a CS organization, and that's to refine our health assessments. Being able to leverage data that's already interpreted, they're leveraging the AI capabilities within support logic to enhance and refine our health score so we truly can have a more precise and comprehensive evaluation of our customer. So let's dive into each of these examples a bit. And I said I was from Buffalo. So you see, I've used Buffalo Bills customer for my entire demo. The first thing is enriching the customer 360 in the summary page. This is the first thing that CSM sees. It's their main portal that they work out of when they're evaluating a customer. And you can start to see the areas that are highlighted of what we're pulling in or leveraging from support logic. One, I can see different types of signals that have happened across time for this customer. I can see their total cases. I've pulled out their health score just as it is related to the support experience, as well as some other quantitative data points that I have in my highlights and widgets on this page. Lots of opportunities to enhance this. We don't want to overwhelm the CS organization, so we want to really think about what we're putting here, but opportunities to put this in front of the team without them having to dig into and monitor row by row cases. The next enhancement is really in the C360 still, but this is, and being able to add reports and data visualizations on that report. We have the opportunity to build lots of custom reports within Gainsight. Now that we have that custom object, I can build a report to see what are the types of signals that I'm seeing here. And if I were a CSM managing the Buffalo Bills, I could quickly see, wow, there's a lot of frustration, which I would probably say is very true for Buffalo Bills fans today. Lots of frustration in that fan base. But this is a great quick insight for me to see, okay, there's a lot of frustration. I'm about to jump on a call with this account on Friday. I need to dig into what's going on there. And also, if their renewal is up in so many days, is this going to influence that? So two opportunities or two ideas for enhancing the C360. We think about this second idea or concept, and this is where I'm positioning us leveraging that churn risk signal. And again, I hope this doesn't happen often, but when it happens, we absolutely want to leverage that within our CS strategy. This example is triggering a risk CTA when we get that churn risk signal, highlighting it or flagging it to put on some sort of risk cadence that we have, and then using the timeline integration to outline notes as to what's going on, tagging in your colleagues. So in this example, if Brian Hodges is my executive, I could tag Brian onto that note to say, Brian, we need to add the Buffalo Bills to our weekly risk cadence because we have a churn risk that was just noted from support logic or from our support team. So being able to enhance that whole risk framework in developing or triggering some of those risk CTAs and collaborating across our team. We also can leverage this within our health assessment. And this, I think, will save a lot of time and effort, take out all of that interpretation of, well, what is good health? What is healthy from a support experience? And we can leverage those signals that are going to come over from support logic, being able to integrate that predicted churn as a measure, an escalation likely, or even those negative sentiment cases that may come over. We have our entire support health score here with its group weighting. We also can leverage a feature within Gainsight with that predicted churn, where if there is a predicted churn, we can automatically set up an exception that will automatically push that overall health score to red. This is where I say sound all the alarms, because if somebody is saying they are going to churn, then we need to flag that from support to CS, influence a health score, and then get it into our risk cadence for evaluation. And putting a nice bow on top of everything that we talked about today, with having this data integrated within to Gainsight, we've looked a lot at like an individual customer record. We also can look at it from a bird's eye view of having trend reporting on tickets, looking maybe into different types of segments of customers, and using this information to inform our strategy and what we're doing with our customers from a big picture perspective. With that, Ryan, I am going to turn it over to Brian. I didn't realize my name doesn't rhyme with the two of you, so I don't know, I'm feeling a little left out here. But we're going to have Brian talk about building this bridge and how to go about doing this successfully, given everything that I've talked about. But as you can see, we've got a GIF here, so I think somebody's already got it, Ryan.
Aaron, you've got it. It's Tommy Boy. Great. Congratulations. That's our last GIF. Brian, I know you love this scene. I love this scene, this movie. What are your thoughts on it?
I love this. When I first saw this, I thought it was from one of my other favorite Chris Farley skits. So for anyone that's been familiar with Chris Farley and his comedy, he did a skit on Saturday Night Live where he was talking about, being homeless in a van down by the river. And one, if you've never seen it, Google it, go onto YouTube and look for, Chris Farley van down by the river. It's one of his funniest skits of all time, I think. And it's pretty appropriate here. A van down by the river, a bridge down by the river. So we're going to talk a little bit about building a bridge here. And I want to go back to what I said earlier about I'm sort of mixing the analogies here, but the silo busting and building the bridge. The point with all of this is we want to find a way when we start to work with our clients, we look for ways to encourage collaboration between the teams. Now, Kate shared with you a tremendous amount of sort of the art of what's possible when you bring this data in, and it's fantastic. And there's a lot that can be done. And those things that Kate showed, for those of you that are experienced Gainsight practitioners, that's just sort of the tip of the iceberg of what you could be doing. And there's so many things that can be done with this data once it's brought in. And so what I want to talk about here is, and if we could go to the next slide, this is something that we talk to our customers about a lot. If you could click the next click, I've used a flame here of trying to boil the ocean, and it's got a dual meaning. Number one is, you want to try to avoid boiling the ocean, and I know that's a phrase that gets used a lot, but I want to hopefully use the flame concept to burn this into your thinking process, and that is, despite our efforts to encourage our customers to take a step at a time and look at ways to see value, implement something that's showing that value, and then build from there, we still find that there's this approach of trying to do everything at once. And it really does create challenges to the adoption of this fantastic new capability. So what we prefer, we could use the next image here, what we prefer is to have a much more focused, very specific boiling of water for a very specific use case. So the recommendation here is don't try to do everything that Kate just showed a moment ago, or try to explore every rabbit hole that you could possibly go down with this, but rather start with something very specific, a very specific problem that can be remedied through this collaboration between your support and your customer success organizations. If we go to the next slide, I've got just a little bit of a framework, and I'm sure that all of you have lots of different change management frameworks and different things that you've experienced in your careers. I'm just going to touch on this, briefly as something for you to think about in the context of bringing these two data sets together. So the first thing I would say is it always starts with your customer journey. When you look at your points of friction in the customer journey and what problems you're trying to solve, you want to define those goals. What are we going to accomplish? What are the KPIs that are going to serve as a reference point for whether we've solved those things or not? And then the other thing I always recommend is to create, a racy diagram for those that haven't heard of this, who's responsible, who's accountable, who's consulted, who's informed. It's a way to ensure that there's complete comprehension across your enterprise as to who's responsible for what during this entire exercise. And then from there, once you've got a solid plan in place, the execution is fairly straightforward. The API connectivity between Gainsight and Support Logic is not complicated at all. So it's just a matter of enabling that integration and then starting to make your adjustments, whether it's with your scorecards, your 360s, creating playbooks or plays that you run as a collective team, and then just collaborate among the two teams on what are we doing about these situations? How do we remedy the challenges that are being uncovered through the sharing of the data? And the other thing that we want to talk about as you've gone through this process is make sure that you're capturing the data that you need in order to track your KPIs. And so you're going to be bringing the data in from Support Logic, but there are also some other data elements that are going to be pertinent to calculating your success with these KPIs. So don't forget to include those in the execution process. And then finally, but the next phase is to assess. Again, our recommendation is to start with something that's got good business meaning and value, execute on that, and then assess how well it's gone. And I think it's really important to include all stakeholder feedback from the leadership team, the C-suite, to the middle management team, to the agents on the support side, and your CSMs on the customer success side. Everyone should be providing their feedback as to how this is all working. In addition to that, you're going to be doing an analysis of the data that you have, measure the results on your KPIs, and then look for those key opportunities to improve. I think for folks that are on this call, I'm assuming you're either in support or customer success. You're well aware of the fact that these types of projects are never really done. They are an ongoing evolution that you're going to want to continue to build and grow upon as time goes on, which leads us to our last stage, which is repeat the process. You should assume that this is going to be an iterative process. And so you want to define what your cadence is going to be for your organization. And it'll be different for every company. You have different ways that you roll out new products. You have different cadences that you do your business reviews and things like that. So it's important for you to make sure that you've got alignment on what our cadence is going to be, how much time we need to see some results before we make changes. And then finally, look at those findings, look at those results, and make sure that they're accessible to everyone. The other thing that I'm kind of surprised about when I meet with customers to talk about these motions is how often the results for these types of initiatives are kept in a vacuum and aren't shared across the enterprise, and they're not easily accessible. So if that's true for you and your organization, I would hope that you could be that champion to make sure that it is accessible to everyone. And so, again, you may have your own framework, you may have your own methodology to follow, but here's some things to consider in the context of the discussion that we've had. So, Ryan, if we could, we'll just close things out with some very specific next steps. And as I said, this is a very straightforward process. We go ahead and build to the next slide as well, Ryan. For those of you that are on the call, you may fit one of these three categories. And you might notice that at the beginning of all of them, we talk about starting with your customer success manager. Ryan, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about things here from the support logic perspective.
Absolutely. You see a real symmetry here. If you're interested in getting this together, I encourage you to reach out to your CSM if you're already a Support Logic customer, or if not, contact Support Logic and we can get you going. And then what's so great about this partnership is clearly nCloud has incredible expertise on Gainsight, but they also have incredible expertise on this business plan and on making this a success, which is really cool and something that's so exciting. So we're so happy to partner with nCloud and make sure that this Gainsight Support Logic integration is a great one. So you can see here across the board that that's a key step in making sure that this is all working. Brian, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess what I would add to that is, if you have any questions about the content that we've shared today, or you want to just, pick our brains a little bit about some of the change management or the processes, or even some of the detail that Kate shared a little bit earlier, we would be happy to jump on a call and elaborate a little bit further on some of these concepts and on some of these ideas. And then again, would be happy to work with you and your organization to help bring these two powerful platforms together and make the most out of the data that's generated between the two systems.
Awesome. Brian and Kate, thanks for joining me so much. This has been a really fun webinar. I want to encourage folks who are still watching to join us January 11th. Joe Andrews and Rob Hartwick are going to go through a really cool solution for how you can really save manager time, support time, and get really efficient in how you're doing your case routing and your assignments. So join us January 11th. Kate and Brian, thanks so much. Hope you have a great holiday. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you.